not long after being elected, the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, was angered by a satirical television program. This was called Kukli, and it was a puppet show. And what he really didn't like was the puppet of himself. It was small, it was scrawny. But he didn't cancel the show. Instead, what he did was he intimidated the owner of the television station, which was producing the show. So he threatened him with investigations, there were lawsuits, there was harassment of his children. Eventually, the owner gave up. He sold the television station to Gazprom, which is a Kremlin-owned oil and gas company, and Kukli disappeared. Why am I telling you this story? I'm telling it to you to expand your definition and understanding of what the word censorship means. So all of us have in our minds the kind of Orwellian image of a bureaucrat in an office crossing out sentences with a pen. But actually, in modern, sophisticated autocracies, in Russia or in China, there's no Department of Censorship, and there are no bureaucrats, and they don't have pens. Instead, the regime influences newspapers, broadcasters, as well as anyone who speaks in public through financial pressure, through lawsuits, through tax investigations, through small kinds of harassment that makes their lives difficult. And online conversations are controlled in the same way. So the government either owns or influences the platforms, and they in turn make it hard for anybody to find ideas that the regime dislikes. Censorship in this form has now arrived in the United States. And it poses the greatest threat to the free press and to free speech that Americans have faced in modern times. So Donald Trump, just like Putin, has been using lawsuits and the bureaucracy, the Federal Communications Commission, to bully entertainment conglomerates and news outlets. You know, a call from a bureaucrat got Jimmy Kimmel fired. The fear of retribution led ABC News, among others, to pay off the president. CBS and the Washington Post now go out of their way not to offend him. They play a game. They don't want to be in the crosshairs. They're careful what they publish. So just like Putin, Trump has also nearly engineered the sale of TikTok, which is arguably the most important source of political information for younger Americans, to his allies. And so, like their counterparts in China, American social media CEOs also now let their algorithms promote lies and conspiracy theories, hiding better information, downplaying journalism, creating distrust and polarization. Why? Because they can make money and win the favor of the president at the same time. In the coming years, the task for people like you, for people in this room, is to prevent that circle from closing. So I'm lucky, I work for The Atlantic, and we can report what we see without fear of retribution, but we don't reach everyone. America also needs grassroots sources of information. You heard from one a few minutes ago, but you also need information that comes from institutions that a wide range of people trust. And I actually believe that a wide range of people is also needed to produce them. So if we're to maintain a fair national conversation, then we need schools and universities and charities and unions and artist networks and others who will build local news websites, newsletter networks, radio stations to provide the information that people aren't getting anywhere else. And everyone, actually, from artists to scientists, can help build these grassroots projects as contributors, as supporters, or just as readers, or just as people who share things. I also think that people like you will eventually work together to support alternative forms of social media as well. You know, eventually, we're going to need platforms whose algorithms promote consensus and accuracy, and that's not scientifically impossible, instead of lies and sensation. But they will also need people who can then seek out and share good information with their networks and support the people who work to provide it. You know, protecting the free press nowadays is not just about keeping journalists out of jail. So the old idea of what you have to do to save journalism is very different, I think, than it used to be. It now requires the construction of new forms of media and social media, new forms of communication, led by a new generation of leaders who are not susceptible to political pressure and who are willing to work together and create networks that can resist it. So I have no doubt that some of them are already here in this room, and so in advance, I thank you.